today's session is all about what's new in the Q4 2023, or what we refer to externally as the 13.2 release. So some quick logistical things here. I do have everyone on mute, and the reason being is I want to make sure that the recording is clean and that other listeners are able to hear me. So I do have everyone on mute. However, questions are welcome. Please feel free to put them into the Zoom webinar chat. I'll be keeping an eye on that. There is a Q&A as well, but I'm really focusing, rather than use both, I'm just going to look at the webinar chat. So if you do have a question, please feel free to pop it into the webinar chat box, and I will be sure to check those as we go through today's content. And as I mentioned at the very beginning, today's session is being recorded, so I will be sending this out to each of you after today's session. So you'll have it if you'd like to share it amongst the users at your company or other teams, whatever you may like. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So for those that I haven't met yet, my name is Bree Rowe. I am the Senior Director of SugarU here at Sugar. And so I handle all things training related at SugarCRM. And I'm excited today to walk you through all the new features that you'll be seeing in this 13.2 release. Quick agenda. So I will be covering what's new in all these different products. Now, as some of you may realize, all of our products release in somewhat of a slightly different cadence. So Market and Connect and our mobile app all release in a much quicker cadence than SugarSell and SugarServe. So though that's the case, we always kind of wrap things up into one quarterly release for all of you. And so with that, I'll be covering what's new in Sugar Market. I'll also be covering SugarSell and SugarServe. There's obviously a lot of overlap there between those two. What's new in Sugar Automate or guided selling, the SugarCRM mobile app, and then Sugar Connect, our mail and calendar integration. So I'll be talking through each of those. I break it down by product just so it's clean and easy. For those that are using specific products, I'll be sure to note before I dive into each new section, which product I'll be covering for that space. And then at the very end, I'll talk through Release Central, which is a space in Sugar Club that walks through all of the information I'll be covering today in different formats. So I'll talk through what resources are available there. And then we'll wrap up with Q&A. Though I have a Q&A section at the end, please do feel free, if you have questions in real time, as I mentioned earlier, to pop them into the webinar chat. I'm happy to take those as they come. Okay, with that, let's start with Sugar Market. So there are two items that I'm going to discuss for Sugar Market, and these are items that are slated to be released next week, so the week of the 30th. So they're not out just yet, but they are coming early next week, essentially. So for that, the first one is conditional form fields. So these will allow you to specify fields on a form that only appear based on previous responses within the same form. So to kind of walk you through that, I know these screenshots are somewhat small, kind of double click here on this one. So this is an example of a form, and we have a drop-down field called product interest. So it's this one right here, asking what the customer is interested in. And dependent on what they select, it will then kind of give an additional field that will appear. So if you're a sell or serve user, this will be similar to kind of a dependent field situation, but it's available as a much more simplified version within Sugar Market. So in this form, if in the product interest field, they select that they are interested in widgets, then this new quantity or number field, the one that's highlighted in pink, will appear on the form for the user to then populate. And you can see on the right-hand side here, this is a logic type field. So you can kind of see that designated here by this little logic, I guess you could say icon. And so those are items that are only going to show up if a user specifically selects a set item or drop-down list from that field, basically. So what this does is it allows you to have contingent fields, basically, where you can put them on the form and they'll only be visible if you need them visible to the user based on how they've answered your other questions. So it's a much quicker, easier way to kind of manage that. And then to give you an idea of what this looks like on the actual form, I have an example of one here. So this is the example of the same exact form. It's just a preview of it, but you can see that there were a lot of fields or form questions on the form itself. And then when we're looking at the preview, it's really showing just a few of them, or a subset. So you can see that product interest, there's a drop down there. And then where the arrow is essentially where that quantity or number item field would come up if the user who's filling out the form had selected widgets. So it would show up between those two. So just a quick example of what that looks like and how it can be used. And again, that's coming early next week. The second one, which is also exciting for Market, is preference management. So we've always had preference management within Market, but we've made some significant changes to the way that it works. So we've consolidated the solutions. We used to have, I think, 3 down to 2. So we've simplified it, and we've retired the global unsubscribe page. And we've also made some changes to the guarded watch list or the locked opt-out list. So I'll walk through each of these as we kind of go through the slide progression here. So what you're seeing here is an example of the preference page. So this is where you can configure the details as well as the look and feel. You can see that you've got the ability to add additional preference lists if you like. You can choose the styling, the button. All of that is available and configurable within this page. We've also made it so that if you want to be able to use multiple preference lists, you can do so in the form builder as well. So you have the ability to manage more than one preference form if your use case is one that supports having multiple. So there's a bit more flexibility there. The other nice thing, aside from simplifying it, cleaning up the page, is that we've also made it such that you can essentially brand and publish the default preference page in a way that matches your business. So you've got a lot more flexibility to brand it and make it have the look and feel that you like. So much better experience overall. I don't have a screenshot for this necessarily, but the other thing I noted was the guarded watch changes. So for those Market users, previously, if a contact unsubscribed from the unsubscribe page, they were added to a table called guarded watch. And the only way for you to remove that contact from that list was to contact our technical support team. We've improved that whole process, and you can now opt a contact back in by sending a confirmation opt-in to that user. So you no longer have to touch base or reach out to support to get a company contact removed from the guarded watch list. So that should hopefully reduce support cases and make it much easier on you all as the users to opt people back in if needed from your customer side. And that wraps up Sugar Market for this next release. Next, we'll be talking about SugarSell and SugarServe. So now keep in mind, for all those that are cloud users, we are in the process of, this is a cloud only release. So we're in the process of rolling this release out to our cloud customers. And then for those that may be on-site or using enterprise, these are items that would be available in the end of year release that's going, the on-site release that's going to be happening towards the end of this year. So some of these things may be coming soon, dependent on how you have Sugar deployed. All right, with that, we've had the Cloud Drive dashlet. We now have a new SharePoint integration for Cloud Drive. So we found that, you know, obviously previously it worked with Dropbox, OneDrive, and Google Drive. However, we heard from a lot of our customers that you all wanted to be able to integrate with SharePoint as well. So with 13.2, you are able to interact with your SharePoint files via the Cloud Drive dashlet from any dashboard in Sugar, meaning you can upload, download, copy links to files from the Cloud Drive dashlet, and your documents will stay synced in real time, which is great. And so I've got kind of an example of adding the dashlet on the bigger GIF there. And then the smaller screenshot is an example of what the dashlet would look like connected to SharePoint. So very similar functionality as to what was there before. It's just that we've added the new integration for SharePoint going forward. The other key thing here I want to note, if we have any users on the call, is that the system admin needs to have the Microsoft connector configured in order for you to be able to plug into the cloud drive and use it for all the various systems, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Drive, and SharePoint. In addition to the cloud drive improvements, we've also made a lot of improvements to DocuSign. So now what you can do with DocuSign is you can apply a DocuSign template. So there's the concept of creating a template within DocuSign specifically, not within Sugar, but you're able to create a template with the Sugar document you're sending to DocuSign so that everything defined within the saved template, so for instance, the DocuSign roles, fields, all of that is applied to a new envelope in Sugar. And this allows you to save time when sending similar envelopes. So before this release, it didn't, the whole DocuSign integration didn't allow users to apply a DocuSign template to a Sugar document. So it made it a little bit more of a process to do this. So we've essentially improved that and made it a lot easier to kind of walk through that. So I wanted to give you an example. So if your company sends out a similar, maybe not exactly the same contract to each new client, basically in the past, you would have had to create the document and send it to DocuSign, then set up the signatures and other fields manually. With this new process, you have the ability to, from the DocuSign dashlet, click send with template. And within DocuSign, that template has defined roles and the appropriate places for signatures and other information for that role. So you're able to anchor DocuSign fields to, so like signature fields, for instance, will be placed next to a signature field. So it makes it a lot easier to kind of map what you need within the template itself. And it makes it so that you don't have to do this time and time again if you're sending a similar document. So with that, there's this new send with template button that you see highlighted on the screen. And basically once you've selected that, the user can then select the DocuSign template that you want to use. This is just an example template that I have on the screen here. And then once they've got the template selected, basically it's going to then allow them to select users from a list. So these are the individuals that the document will be sent to for signing. And when you're sending a document to DocuSign using a template like this, the select signer recipients drawer will open with a list of potential recipients. So you can see here that if the list of recipients that pop up automatically are not what you want to use necessarily, there is this module button that's highlighted here where you can select from these 4 different modules to populate your signers. So it's users of the system, anyone from the accounts module, contacts, or leads. So those are all available. You'd want to be sure that once you find the recipient, you enable this checkbox here next to their name and then assign a role for that recipient based on this drop down here. So, and if you need to make any changes, I just want to note this real quick. If you need to make any changes to the roles, those are all going to be changes that you would make on the DocuSign website, the app side. So once the users are selected, you now also have the ability to name the envelope And then this is now an envelope that's been set up and saved. And so next time you need to send that form or whatever it is to the document to the clients, if it's again something that you're sending on a regular cadence, you can quickly go into that envelope, select the new users that you'd like to use, and send it off. So it's a much cleaner, easier process going forward. Okay, moving away from documents for a moment, we have also made some improvements to our chart legend. So if you are someone who runs a lot of reports in Sugar, we've obviously made a lot of changes to the look and feel of the report result view. And you may have noticed that if you have a report with a lot of information, the legend can be very long, and it used to take up a good amount of space on the actual result view. So what we've done is we've made it such that if you have an extended or long legend, rather than taking up a lot of space, it basically creates one line across the top of the report. And then anything that doesn't fit will show up within that little extended drop down there. And you can still interact with and click on those items from that drop down menu. So just a quick visual of what that looks like. It kind of just improves the look and feel. And I do want to note that this applies to both the result view within the reports module, as well as within the report dashlet. So both places. And it doesn't look like there's any questions so far. But again, if there are any, please let us know. Next, we have, this is something that if you've used Sugar for a very long time, you're probably familiar with this whole feature. But when we transitioned some modules to the new look and feel, the drag and drop functionality went away. So we've essentially brought back drag and drop document upload for both creating new documents or document revisions. So essentially you can drag a document from your computer into the file name field, and it will automatically populate the file name as well as the record name. And so just quick and easy, something that had been there in the past, and we've brought it back, which is great. Makes it a lot easier to upload new documents. Okay, this is probably my favorite of the release. It's the timeline enhancement. So if you're familiar with the timeline view, prior to this release, it displayed a small number of accounts. It was limited in terms of what was able to be displayed there within those modules, and only a few related records and changes were visible within the dashlet. With this release, you can now add nearly all sidecar modules, including any custom modules you've created. And it's displayed within the dashboard default in most out-of-the-box modules. Sorry, I just realized that screenshot is very blurry, but it is a GIF. And so I wanted to show, for those that are admins, you can use Studio to choose up to 10 module relationships, including custom modules, as I said before, to show for each target module. So you just go through, select the boxes for the modules that you want to show up within the timeline dashlet, then click save, and those changes will be made and reflected out to your users. Any module that has a many-to-one or many-to-many relationship with the target module in this example here is the accounts module, can be displayed within the timeline dashlet. So if for some reason you have a module that's not showing up, it may just be that the relationship it has to the target module you're adding the timeline view to. It may be that the relationship type is just not the required type. So again, that was many-to-one or many-to-many relationships. Okay. And then from the end user side of things, when you're looking at the timeline dashlet, you can see there it's scrolling on the right-hand side. We have added more fields to each module, so more changes are tracked within the timeline dashlet, allowing users to be more quickly informed or up to date on what's going on with a given record. We've also added a search to the timeline. So if you are working with an account that has a long history, there's a lot of activities happening, a lot of fields being updated, then the search actually makes it a lot easier to find exactly what you're looking for pretty quickly. So some great enhancements to the timeline view. Again, it's going to be visible on the right-hand side dashboard or the intelligence pane within most sidecar modules. So some cool stuff there. And then this is the last item for sell and serve. We do have a new distribution method for the email to case functionality. So for those that may not be familiar, the email to case functionality within an inbound email, basically mailbox, you can set it up so that if you have customers emailing into that box, the email box, what'll happen is you can automatically create a case from the inbound emails that are being sent to that email address. And the distribution method drop down that you see there is we had, round robin or least busy, and now we have an option for none. And the reason that we did this was because we had customers, we had some of you all saying that you wanted more flexibility to assign those cases manually or perhaps use BPM to kind of automate things in a different way. So with the none option, basically those cases will be created and they will sit there within that queue, and you can either set up a business process to automate who that should go to, or you can assign it manually. There's just a lot more flexibility there. So that's just a quick and easy new option that's available for the email to case functionality. Moving into automate. So for 13.2 with Sugar Automate, or it's also referred to sometimes as guided selling, this automation tool, there's a few things that we've done to increase performance with guides, basically. So prior to this release, if you've ever tried to update an activity on a guide by setting it to complete or in progress, it would reload all the smart guides related to that record. So if you're a company that has multiple smart guides set up for your sales team, maybe it's on leads or opportunities, whatever it may be, if you updated one of those, all of those other related guides would update as well. So I've kind of shown the new experience here on the left-hand side and the old experience on the right-hand side. So rather than updating all of those related guides, what we do now is we just make it such that only that guide that you've updated an activity on will be refreshed. So it'll be a lot faster and a lot easier on everyone. You won't have to wait for everything to reload. So quick and easy update on performance there. Another small update, but this is one that you all as customers were asking for, is the visibility of the Smart Guide assignee. So when it's basically the primary owner or the assigned user's name and avatar show up at the top of the Smart Guide when you're viewing it within the record view. So it's very easy to see, it's visible. This information was reflected previously, but you had to expand the Smart Guide view and it was a little bit more hidden. So it's much more front and center now so that you're able to see who that Smart Guide is assigned to by just looking and seeing the avatar and name there. This was another customer request. So when you are working within a Smart Guide, you now have the ability to link an existing task, meeting, or call activity to your Smart Guide. So if you have an activity that's going on, you created it, maybe it wasn't within the Smart Guide itself, but you created it on one of the related subpanels, you can now relate that item. You can link an existing task, call, or meeting to that stage within the Smart Guide. So rather than having to create it again or move things around, you can easily select it from a list. It'll automatically update that stage within the Smart Guide, and it saves you some steps. So it's a nice feature that's now available as well. Okay, and our last automate update is that we've improved the performance on related sugar actions. So this is a pretty quick GIF example here, but to walk you through what's happening is prior to this release, when you were saving a guide where there are related sugar actions applied, it would take a long time to reload. And sometimes, candidly, it would break, leaving you as the user wondering what happened and what, did those other actions take place or did they not? So what we've done is we now show a progress bar to make it such that you're able to visually see how things are going and you're able to see when everything is completely done. So there's been some performance tweaks made on the back end as well, but the overall experience when saving a guide with related actions should be a lot better, and you should be able to visually see when everything is saved and complete. Okay, next we have our Sugar mobile app. So there are some cool things we've done here. The first being that you can now view data tables for the report dashlet. So for any rows and columns, summation and summation with detail reports, you are able to view those in the report data table within the mobile app. You also have the ability to, as you can see in this middle section here, so this is kind of an example of what it would look like on the mobile app. This is a summation report. And then this middle image here is all the different, I guess you could say, controls you have for that specific report chart table. So you can freeze the first column so that it stays within that view as you scroll horizontally. You can also sort or hide other columns that are visible. And then last but not least, runtime filters. You can access and update the report's runtime filters when you're viewing a report on the dashlet. So all great stuff. Basically, in order to use this within mobile, you just need to make sure that you have a report that contains data tables on the dashboard, and you're able to go in and view it within the mobile app. So some great flexibility there, especially for those that are on the road, working from their phones. It's a lot easier to now view this information within the mobile app. And this next one, automatic contact and lead sync for caller ID. If you are a mobile app user, what we rolled out, I think it was 2 releases ago for mobile app, was we introduced a new feature where for incoming calls, we would, if it was a contact or a lead that matches the phone number, it would give you a caller ID so that you would know that a contact or lead call was coming in. Which is great because, again, if you're someone who's working from your phone consistently, you've got customers calling you, it's nice, or prospects, it's nice to know if the number comes in, rather than seeing it, not knowing the number and answering it, wondering who it might be. You're able to see if it is a prospect or a business contact. You're able to see that information within the mobile app. So with that release, the sync to kind of pull that information into the mobile app was manual. And so what we've done now is we've made it such that you can automatically sync the caller ID database of contacts and leads every 5 minutes, ensuring if there's anyone new added to the system, that they would immediately be identified if they were to call you right away on your mobile phone. So you do still have the option to manually sync if you want, but there is now the option to have it done automatically, which saves you the trouble of having to do that on a regular cadence. Okay, last but not least, we have Sugar Connect. So there's some great stuff that came in Sugar Connect. I'm not sure if all of you, we actually had a social club session. For those that aren't familiar, social club sessions happen on the second Thursday of every month. It's kind of like a live virtual meetup, I guess you could say, of customers and subject matter experts from Sugar. And we covered Sugar Connect and what was new. We actually had our product manager, Andrew Blue, talk about all of the new things coming in Connect. So if you attended that, some of these may be familiar. But for those that were not able to attend, these are some of the new things that were released I think it was last week, actually, just last week. So with that, timeline view is now sticky. So if you use the sidebar with Connect, what that means is that there's been, I would say for the last few releases, the ability to view the timeline within the sidebar. But we heard from you all that you'd really like it to be sticky. That way, if you're consistently using the timeline view, the sidebar, it will remember that. So you don't have to constantly toggle back and forth. So just saves a few clicks there if that's something that you're interested in. Next is we've got the ability for admins to define a policy for all user calendar sync settings. So what that means and what you're seeing on the screen here is that as system admins, if you are an admin and you are trying to set up or control the way that your users are interacting with or syncing information for calendar from Connect into Sugar, that you now have the ability for that synchronization to choose whether for meetings, for instance, what types of meetings are going to sync, what types of calls, what types of tasks, so what status they're in. The main idea here is that this could be done at an individual basis, but for going forward now, an admin has the ability to say, as a company, this is what we're syncing to kind of make sure that things are clean and meet your company's business requirements. So there is now the ability to kind of choose what's going to sync for event types. And then also you're able to choose the primary calendar. So you can choose kind of how that's set up as well by default for all users, which is nice. All right, this is our last new feature here. So with Connect, you also have the ability you can toggle on or off, whether you want to use hint data automatically or not on the contact and lead creation forms within the sidebar. So previously there wasn't a choice and hint data was always used. And we heard from you all that you would like the flexibility to choose. So there's a general option there that can be set to choose whether or not hint data will be populated. So that's done in general options, but then you also have the ability within the contact and lead creation forms to toggle on or off whether you want to use hint data on an ad hoc basis. So you've got the ability to do both there. And that covers, I know I flew through all of that. That covers the highlights of what's new in this release for all of our different products. I will get into questions, but before I do that, because I know some folks might pop off, I do want to let you all know, if you're not familiar already, that with each release, there's this space in Sugar Club called Release Central. And what it does is it allows you to see for the last few releases as well as the existing release, what's going on. We've got content and everything there. I was actually going to go into, let's see, I'll take you in there. So you can see what I'm referring to. Give me just a moment and I'll pop this over there. Okay. Make it a little bit bigger for you all. Now, please keep in mind that I'm an admin on Sugar Club, so I may have some visibility into things that you all might not see on your side. But under Sugar Club, in the product information tab, the first link there is Release Central. And as I said, there's a lot of content that both my team puts out, our product marketing team, our documentation team. There's a lot that goes into each release. And so for the prior two releases and the current release, we have information broken out by product and by role. So if I click into Q4 2023, we're able to see, you can either click into one of these items here and it'll automatically, it's kind of like an anchor, it'll drop you down to that section, but I'll just scroll here so you kind of get the idea of what's available. But per product, we break down kind of the spotlight of what's new and what to keep track of. And then we have all of the release notes, blogs, guides, training, anything that you might want to engage with or learn about for a new release is going to be available within this page. So if it's not one that you've utilized, definitely suggest checking it out. And there is a way, actually, if I scroll down here, there is a way to either bookmark the page, which will make it visible within your bookmark tab on Club itself. I would also highly suggest, if you're an admin or someone who's very interested in keeping up to date with what's going on with releases, to turn on page notifications. And what that means is that anytime we update the page, you'll receive an email notification letting you know that something's been added or changed. So definitely suggest checking it out if you haven't already.